I stood there, hands tied to the white fence at the edge of my family's garden, watching my sister Stella laugh as she aimed her phone at me, the silk ribbon cut into my wrists. My 5-year-old son Leo was screaming, tears streaming down his face as my mother pushed him away. $20 bills lay scattered at my feet like trash. This was my sister's 25th birthday party, and I had just become the entertainment. But let me tell you how it really started, because nobody ties their own daughter to a fence without years of practice being cruel. If you want to hear how I took everything from them after what they did, hit that like button right now, subscribe to hear the full story, and drop a comment telling me what you would have done. Because trust me, what comes next is going to blow your mind. Let me take you back to the beginning to help you understand how a family can destroy one of their own and still sleep at night. My name is Chloe Thompson, and I grew up in what looked like the perfect family. My father, Richard, was a successful investment manager, member of 3 country clubs, his face in business magazines. My mother, Eleanor, ran every charity organization in town and decided who was worthy of their elite social circle. We lived in an 8,000-square-foot mansion in a gated community where the HOA fees alone cost more than most mortgages. My younger sister, Stella, was born 3 years after me, and she was everything my parents wanted. Perfect blonde curls, big blue eyes, beauty pageant trophies lining her walls. I was different. Brown frizzy hair, ordinary hazel eyes, too wide of a smile. But I was smart, and I thought that might be enough. I graduated high school with a 4.2 GPA, early college acceptance scholarship offers. For a moment, I thought I had found my place. I would be the brains, Stella would be the beauty. Then I got pregnant at 19 during my freshman year. The father, Connor, accused me of trapping him and offered me $2,000 for an abortion if I never contacted him again. I sat in my dorm for 3 days staring at that positive test. Part of me wanted to make it all disappear, but I wanted this baby. When I told my parents, my mother set down her pruning shears and looked at me with ice-cold eyes. Do you have any idea what this will do to our reputation? My father gave me 2 options. Terminate the pregnancy, and they would pay for everything, or keep the baby and be completely cut off. No financial support, no family, nothing. You would really cut me off, I asked. Your own daughter. Adult decisions come with adult consequences, he said coldly. You cannot expect us to fund your mistakes. I looked at them and saw the truth. They did not care about me. They cared about their image, their reputation, what the neighbors would think. I am keeping the baby, I said quietly. My mother's face hardened. Then you should start packing. I moved into a tiny studio apartment with $3,000 in savings. I dropped out of college and got a job waiting tables at a 24-hour diner. The work was brutal, but I showed up for every shift, smiled at rude customers, worked doubles, saved every dollar. Leo was born on a rainy October night. I went into labor during my shift and drove myself to the hospital. 14 hours of labor alone, no family, just me and tired nurses. When they placed him in my arms, I understood unconditional love for the first time. I promised him right then that I would give him the childhood I never had. The first months were hell. Leo had colic and screamed every night. I worked 40 hours on broken sleep in an apartment so small, his crib was 2 feet from my bed. But slowly things improved. I got promoted to head waitress, moved to a slightly better apartment, took online classes while Leo napped. For years, I heard nothing from my parents. No calls, no texts, not even a card on Leo's first birthday. Complete silence. Until Stella's 18th birthday party. My mother called 3 days before. Not, how are you, just we are having a party for Stella on Saturday. You should come. Do not be late. I almost said no, but some pathetic part of me hoped this was an olive branch. Maybe they wanted to meet Leo. Maybe they regretted everything. I dressed Leo in his nicest Target outfit and wore my one good dress. I bought Stella a present I could not afford. When I pulled up in my beat-up Honda, the driveway was full of luxury cars. I parked a block away and walked up carrying Leo. My mother spotted me first. Chloe, you came, she said, not even glancing at Leo. Try to stay out of the way. This is Stella's night and we do not want any drama. I found a quiet corner with Leo. My parents' friends made polite conversation before finding excuses to leave. Stella did not acknowledge me for an hour. When I gave her the gift, she barely looked at it before setting it aside with the others. No hug, no questions about Leo, nothing. I should have left right then, but I stayed still hoping for something that felt like family. The years after that followed a pattern. My parents would call when they needed something. My father needed help organizing financial documents for tax season. Come over Tuesday. My mother needed someone to deep clean the house before hosting her book club. Come over Thursday. Stella needed a ride to the mall because her car was in the shop. Come get her at noon. And like an idiot, I always said yes. I would drop everything, arrange childcare for Leo, drive across town to help them. And every single time they treated me like hired help. No thank you, no warmth, just expectation. When Leo turned 4, I finally finished my degree. It took me 5 years of night classes and online courses, but I did it. I graduated with a bachelor's in accounting. It was not the pre-med degree I had originally planned, but it was something. I got a job at a small accounting firm. It did not pay much, but it was better than waitressing. I had health insurance for the first time in years. I could afford to buy Leo new clothes instead of thrift store hand-me-downs. Things were looking up. I was proud of myself. I had done something that everyone said was impossible. Single mother, no support, working full-time, and I still got my degree. I thought maybe finally my parents would be proud of me too. I called my mother to tell her about my graduation. There was no ceremony for online students, just a diploma that came in the mail, but I wanted to share the news. "That is nice, dear," she said distractedly. "Listen, I am actually glad you called. Your father and I are hosting a dinner party next Saturday, and our regular caterer canceled. Do you think you could come early and help set up? Not congratulations, not good job. Just another request for help. I graduated from college," I said again slower. "I thought you might want to know." "I heard you," she said. "Accounting, right? Well, at least you have some job security. Now about Saturday, can you be here by 3? I told her I would be there and hung up. I sat on my couch and cried for the first time in months. My 4-year-old son climbed into my lap and patted my face. "Do not be sad, Mama," he said in his sweet little voice. "I am proud of you." And that had to be enough. The breaking point did not happen all at once. It was a slow accumulation of tiny cruelties, small humiliations, 1,000 paper cuts over the course of 5 years. Like the time I brought Leo to a family Christmas gathering, and my mother introduced him to her friends as Chloe's son, never my grandson. Like the time Stella posted a family photo on Instagram with the caption, "The Thompson Girls," and it was just her and our mother. Like the time my father needed help with an investment property and had me do hours of research and paperwork, then paid me $50 like I was a contractor he barely knew. But what happened at Stella's 25th birthday party was different. That was not a paper cut. That was a knife to the heart. The invitation came in the mail, an expensive cream-colored card with gold lettering. "You are invited to celebrate Stella Thompson's 25th birthday. Black tie, 7 p.m., RSVP required." There was a handwritten note from my mother. "We would like you to attend. Stella has many important friends coming, and we want to present a united family front. Also, please arrive by 5 to help with last-minute preparations." Of course, I was invited to help, not to celebrate. But I RSVP'd yes anyway because I was apparently incapable of learning my lesson. I spent money I did not have on a new dress, something appropriate for a black tie event. I spent 3 hours making Stella a birthday present because I could not afford to buy her something from her registry at Tiffany's. I baked her favorite cookies using our grandmother's recipe chocolate chip walnut. I helped Leo make her a birthday card with his crayons, a rainbow and flowers, and his careful 5-year-old handwriting spelling out "Happy Birthday, Aunt Stella." We showed up at 5 like my mother had requested. The backyard was already transformed. There were white tents, string lights everywhere, tables with white tablecloths, and crystal glasses. A 5-tier cake sat on display near the garden. There were ice sculptures at a birthday party. My mother put me to work immediately, fold napkins, arrange place cards, make sure the champagne flutes were spotless. Leo sat on a bench nearby, watching quietly. He was so used to being in spaces where he had to be good, be quiet, not draw attention. Guests started arriving at 7. Expensive cars, expensive clothes, expensive jewelry. Stella arrived last, making an entrance in a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her fiancé Marcus was with her, the son of a real estate mogul, the kind of guy who thought $50 bills were spare change. The party was like something out of a movie. The band played champagne, flowed, people laughed and danced. I stayed on the edges with Leo, not quite guest, but not quite help. Invisible unless someone needed something. Leo was fascinated by everything, especially the cake. He kept staring at it with these wide, hungry eyes. We had not eaten dinner. I had assumed we would eat at the party, but the servers kept walking past us with trays of appetizers, never stopping to offer us anything. Finally, around 9 p.m., I caught a server and asked if Leo could have some food. She looked uncomfortable but brought over a small plate of finger sandwiches and fruit. Leo ate like he was starving because at that point he probably was. Then I made a mistake. A server walked by with slices of the birthday cake already cut and plated. Leo saw it and tugged on my dress. "Mama, can I have some cake, please?" His voice was small and hopeful. The server heard him and smiled. "Of course, sweetie." She handed him a plate with a generous slice. Leo's whole face lit up. He was just about to take his first bite when my mother materialized out of nowhere. She snatched the plate right out of his hands so fast that the fork clattered to the ground. "What do you think you are doing?" she hissed at me, not at the server, at me. "Mom, he is just a child. He is hungry. This food is for the guests." She said, her voice low but sharp as glass. "Not for him." She walked over to a large trash can, set up near the drink station. In full view of at least 20 people, she scraped the entire slice of cake into the garbage. Leo made a small wounded sound. His bottom lip started trembling. "Mom, that was completely unnecessary," I said, moving to comfort my son. "Do not feed him food meant for our guests," she said loudly enough that people nearby turned to look. "He does not belong here. He is your consequence, not a member of this family." The words hit me like a physical blow. Your consequence, not your son, not my grandson. Your consequence. Stella appeared beside our mother, taking in the scene. For just a second, I thought I saw something like discomfort flicker across her face. Then Marcus said something in her ear, and they both laughed. "Mom is right, Chloe," Stella said, her voice carrying. "This party is for real guests, not charity cases." Several people were openly staring now. I felt heat rising in my face, shame and anger mixing into something toxic in my chest. "We are leaving," I said quietly, reaching for Leo's hand. "Not yet," my father said, stepping into the situation. His face was red, whether from alcohol or anger I could not tell. "You have not finished your work. The trash needs to be taken out before you go." I stared at him. "My work, Dad? I am your daughter. You stopped being my daughter when you decided to ruin your life and embarrass this family," he said. Every word was deliberate, meant to cut. "The least you can do is make yourself useful." Something inside me broke, not cracked, broke completely. "No," I said. The word came out stronger than I expected. "I am not your employee. I am not your servant. I am your daughter, and this is your grandson, and we are leaving right now." I started walking toward the gate, pulling Leo along with me. He was crying openly now, confused and scared and hurt. My father moved to block my path. He grabbed my arm hard enough that I knew there would be bruises. "You are not going anywhere until you show some respect and do what you are told." I tried to pull away. "Let go of me." He did not let go. If anything, his grip got tighter. My mother stepped closer, her eyes cold and calculating. "Richard, the fence," she said quietly. I did not understand at first. Then I saw her pick up a long silk ribbon from one of the decorative bows on a nearby table. Understanding flooded through me, followed immediately by fear. "No," I said. "No, do not do this." But my father was stronger than me. He dragged me across the lawn toward the white decorative fence at the back of the garden. People were watching now. The entire party had gone quiet. Nobody moved to help. Nobody said a word. I fought. I struggled and kicked and tried to break free. But my father got me to the fence and forced my arms up, holding them against the posts. My mother wrapped the silk ribbon around my wrists, pulling it tight. "Stop it," I screamed. "Let me go." Leo was screaming too, trying to pull on my father's jacket. "Let my mama go, let her go." My mother pushed him away, not hard enough to hurt him, but hard enough to send him stumbling backward. "Stay away, you little bastard." That word. She called my 5-year-old son that word. The ribbon was tight around my wrist, tied in a bow like I was a present, like this was all some kind of joke. I could not get free. I was trapped there, displayed for everyone to see. Stella walked over with her phone out. She was smiling, actually smiling, as she opened her Instagram. "Hey everyone," she said brightly into the camera. "You are not going to believe this. Family entertainment at my birthday party. My sister Chloe always did like to make herself the center of attention. She was live streaming this. Hundreds of people were watching in real time as I stood there tied to a fence at my sister's birthday party. Marcus stepped up beside her, pulled out his wallet, and removed a crisp $20 bill. He looked directly at me as he dropped it at my feet. "Here is your tip for tonight's performance," he said. "You earned it." More bills fluttered down. Stella's friends thought it was funny, a joke. They threw their own money at my feet like I was a street performer. I stopped struggling. There was no point. I looked at each of them, my father with his flushed face and iron grip even though I had stopped fighting. My mother with her expensive jewelry and cold dead eyes. Stella with her phone and her laughter. Marcus with his money and his smirk. I memorized every detail, every face, every person who threw money at me or laughed or just stood there watching and did nothing. Leo was still crying, begging them to let me go. My heart was breaking, but not from humiliation anymore. It was breaking because my son had to witness this, because he had to see his mother treated like garbage by her own family. I looked straight into Stella's phone camera and said very clearly, very calmly, "You are all going to regret this." My mother rolled her eyes and walked away. Eventually, after what felt like hours but was probably only 10 minutes, my father untied me. He shoved me toward the gate. "Get out," he said, "and do not come back unless we call you." I took Leo's hand and walked to my car. The whole way I could hear Stella's voice still narrating to her phone, still laughing like this was the funniest thing that had ever happened. I drove home on autopilot. Leo cried himself to sleep in the back seat. When we got to our apartment, I carried him inside and tucked him into bed, still in his nice clothes because I could not bear to wake him up. Then I sat at my kitchen table and pulled out my phone. Stella's live stream was still going. I watched it. I watched the whole thing from start to finish. I watched myself being dragged to the fence. I watched my son being called that word. I watched money being thrown at me like I was nothing. But I also watched the comments. Hundreds of them, then thousands, as the video was shared and reshared. Is this real? This is disgusting. Someone call CPS. The way they treated that little boy. Is that assault? Why is no one helping her? The video was going viral, but not in the way Stella intended. People were not laughing with her. They were horrified. They were angry. They were demanding to know who this family was and how they could treat someone like that. I watched it 3 times. Then I opened my contacts and called Jessica Chen, my best friend from high school, who had gone on to become a lawyer. "Jess," I said when she answered, "I need your help, and I need you to not try to talk me out of what I'm about to do." "Chloe, it is almost midnight. What's wrong?" I sent her the video. I heard her sharp intake of breath as she watched it. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Chloe, this is assault. This is public humiliation. We can sue them for everything." "I do not want their money," I said, and I meant it. "I want something else. I want justice. Real justice." "What are you talking about?" "My father keeps all his important documents in his home office. Financial records, investment files, everything. I used to help him organize them before I got pregnant. He trusted me with that information once." "Okay," Jessica said slowly, and some of those documents did not look right. Numbers that did not add up. Investments that seemed too good to be true. At the time, I thought I was just not understanding it correctly because I was young and did not know much about finance. But now I have an accounting degree. Now I know what financial fraud looks like. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. "Chloe, are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I think my father has been stealing from his clients for years," I said, "and I think I can prove it." The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I had not felt in years. I called in sick to work. I dropped Leo off at daycare. Then I drove to a coffee shop and started making a list. Everything I remembered about my father's business. Every client name I could recall. Every suspicious document I had seen. Every conversation I had overheard about investments that did not quite make sense. Jessica met me there after her morning court appearance. She brought a yellow legal pad and took notes as I talked. "If what you are saying is true, this is bigger than just getting back at your family," she said. "Real people could be getting hurt. People could be losing their life savings." "I know," I said. "That is why we have to do something. But you do not have any evidence yet. Everything you are telling me is just memory and suspicion." "I can get evidence," I said. "I know when they go out, I still have a key to the house. I can get into his office." Jessica looked uncomfortable. "Chloe, I need to be very careful about how I advise you here. If you break into their house—" "It is not breaking in if I have a key," I interrupted. "If you enter their property without permission and steal documents, that is a crime. I cannot help you do something illegal. But if I happen to have legitimate access to documents, and I happen to notice something wrong with those documents, and I happen to report it to the proper authorities as a concerned citizen, that would be different, right?" Jessica studied me for a long moment. "You are not the same scared 19-year-old who got thrown out of that house." "No," I agreed. "I am not." She took a breath. "If you were to legally obtain evidence of financial fraud, you would need to report it to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Whistleblowers are protected under federal law. If your information leads to a successful enforcement action, you could even receive a percentage of the penalties as a reward." "I do not want a reward," I said. "I want them to face consequences for once in their lives." What if you are wrong? Jessica asked. What if there is no fraud and you go through all of this for nothing? Then I am wrong, I said simply, but I do not think I am. The opportunity came 2 weeks later. My parents had tickets to a charity gala downtown, one of those fancy events where tables cost $10,000 and people bid ridiculous amounts of money on silent auction items to prove how generous they were. Stella was going with them, excited to wear a new designer gown and be seen with the right people. They would be gone from 6 p.m. until at least midnight, probably later. I arranged for Leo to have a sleepover at his best friend's house. I told them I had to work late. Then at 7 p.m., when the sun was just setting, I drove to my parents' house. My hands were shaking as I pulled into the circular driveway. This was it. After this, there was no going back. I would either find evidence of fraud and potentially destroy my family, or I would find nothing and confirm that I was just paranoid and vindictive. I let myself in through the front door. The house was exactly as I remembered it, perfectly decorated and completely cold. I walked through the marble foyer, past the dining room where I had been forced to fold napkins for Stella's party, up the stairs to my father's office. The door was unlocked. Why would he lock it? He thought I was broken. He thought I would never dare to defy him. His desk was massive, all dark wood and brass fixtures. I sat in his leather chair and turned on his computer. I did not know his password, but I did not need to. I was not looking at the computer. I was looking for the external hard drive. My father was old school about certain things. He did not trust, the cloud did not believe in storing everything digitally on networked systems. He kept his most sensitive files on an encrypted external hard drive that he locked in his desk drawer. I knew where he kept the key. He had shown me once years ago, back when I was his promising eldest daughter who might follow in his footsteps, back before I disappointed him. The key was taped to the underside of the second drawer, exactly where it had always been. I unlocked the bottom drawer and pulled out the hard drive. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought I might be sick. I pulled out the USB drive Jessica had given me, the one with portable software that could bypass the encryption. It was completely legal, she had assured me. The kind of thing forensic accountants used all the time. It took 20 minutes to copy the entire contents of the hard drive. 20 minutes where I kept jumping at every sound, convinced I would hear a car in the driveway, a key in the lock, my father's voice demanding to know what I was doing. But nobody came. The house stayed silent. When the transfer was complete, I carefully put everything back exactly as I had found it. I locked the drawer. I replaced the key. I turned off the desk lamp and left the office, closing the door behind me. I was almost to the front door when I heard it. A car pulling into the driveway. My blood went cold. They were not supposed to be back until midnight. It was barely 9 p.m. I heard voices outside. My mother complaining about something. Stella laughing. They were coming in. I did not have time to run out the front door. Instead, I slipped into the coat closet in the foyer and pulled the door almost closed, leaving just enough of a gap to see through. The front door opened. My mother swept in, wearing a glittering gown, my father behind her, in a tuxedo, Stella and Marcus bringing up the rear. I cannot believe they served chicken at a gala that expensive, my mother was saying. Chicken like we were at some suburban banquet hall. The entire thing was disappointing, Stella agreed. Half the people there were complete nobodies. I do not know why we bothered. They moved into the living room and I saw my chance. As silently as possible, I slipped out of the closet, crossed the foyer, and let myself out the front door. I did not start breathing normally again until I was 3 blocks away. That night, I sat in my apartment and looked at the files I had copied. Thousands of documents, client agreements, investment statements, bank records, transaction histories going back almost 10 years. And as I started reading through them, my worst suspicions were confirmed. My father was running a Ponzi scheme. It was sophisticated, carefully constructed over many years. He would take money from clients with the promise of investing it in a diversified portfolio that would generate steady returns. He would show them quarterly statements proving their investments were growing. But the money was not really being invested. Or rather, some of it was, but most of it was going directly into my parents' bank accounts. The returns he was showing clients were fabricated. When someone wanted to withdraw money, he would pay them with funds from new investors. As long as more money was coming in than going out, the scheme held. But it could not last forever. Eventually, there would not be enough new investors to pay the old ones. Eventually, the whole thing would collapse. I found myself getting physically ill as I read through the client list. These were not faceless corporations or wealthy strangers who could afford to lose money. These were real people, retirees who had trusted my father with their pensions. young families who thought they were saving for their children's college education, small business owners who had given him their life savings to invest. One name made me stop completely. David Chen, age 73, invested amount $200,000. Current actual value $14,000. The rest was gone spent on my parents' luxury lifestyle. David Chen lived 4 houses down from my parents. I had known him my whole childhood. He used to give me and Stella candy on Halloween. His wife had taught me how to braid my hair when I was 7. My father had stolen his retirement savings. I do not know how long I sat there crying. For the victims, for the betrayal, for the fact that my family was even worse than I had thought. This was not just emotional abuse or social humiliation. This was criminal. This was evil. At 2 in the morning, I called Jessica again. I found it, I said. It is worse than I thought. She came over immediately, still in sweatpants and no makeup. We spent the rest of the night going through the documents together. Jessica took notes, made copies, organized everything into a coherent package. This is enough, she said as the sun started to come up. This is more than enough. You need to contact the SEC first thing Monday morning. What happens then? I asked. Then they investigate. If they find what we found, they will freeze your parents' assets, shut down your father's business, and likely press criminal charges. Will the clients get their money back? Some of it, hopefully, but probably not all of it. Your parents have spent a lot of it already. I thought about that. About Mr. Chen and his wife, and all the others who would never fully recover what they had lost. It is not enough, I said. Criminal prosecution is not enough. I want everyone to know what they did. I want them to lose everything, not just money, their reputation, their social standing, their perfect life. Jessica looked at me. What are you thinking? Stella's video, I said. It went viral. Millions of people saw how they treated me and Leo. What if we connected that video to the fraud? What if we made sure everyone understood that the people who tied their own daughter to a fence were the same people who stole retirement savings from elderly couples? That is not illegal, Jessica said slowly. You would be well within your rights to share your own story. And if the fraud becomes public record through the SEC investigation, that information would be available to anyone. So we time it right, I said. We file the complaint with the SEC on Monday. Then right before the investigation becomes public, we make sure the victims know what happened. We make sure they have Stella's video. We let them tell their stories alongside mine. Jessica smiled. It was not a nice smile. You have gotten devious. I learned from the best, I said, thinking of my mother's years of manipulation. I just decided to use it for good instead of evil. Monday morning, Jessica and I walked into the SEC field office downtown. We brought boxes of documentation. We brought the hard drive. We brought my testimony about what I had seen and what I knew. The investigator assigned to our case was a tired-looking man in his 50s named Robert Morrison. He listened to our story with increasing interest. This is a serious accusation, he said when we finished. If you are wrong, if this turns out to be some kind of revenge scheme because of a family dispute, look at the documents, I interrupted. Look at the numbers. This has nothing to do with family issues. This is about fraud. He looked. He spent 3 hours going through what we had brought. His expression grew grimmer with each page. I will need to verify all of this, he finally said. But if it is what it appears to be, your father is going to prison for a very long time. Good, I said. The investigation took 6 weeks. 6 weeks where I went about my normal life, going to work, taking care of Leo, pretending everything was fine. 6 weeks where I saw my parents at a distance twice, once at a restaurant where they walked past me without acknowledgement, once at Leo's school event, where my mother literally turned her back when she saw me. 6 weeks where I prepared for what came next. I tracked down as many of my father's victims as I could find. I used old client lists, I had copied public records, some careful internet searches. I found 12 families who had lost significant amounts of money. I contacted David Chen first. He invited me to his house on a Sunday afternoon. His wife Helen answered the door. She hugged me like I was still the little girl who used to come over to play. Chloe, it has been so long. Come in, come in. Can I get you some tea? We sat in their living room, the same room where I had learned to play chess, where Mr. Chen used to tell stories about his childhood in Taiwan. Mr. Chen, Mrs. Chen, I need to show you something, I said. It is going to be upsetting. I showed them Stella's video first. They watched in silence, Mrs. Chen's hand flying to her mouth when my mother called Leo that terrible word. That is barbaric, Mr. Chen whispered. Your own family. There is more, I said. Then I showed them the financial documents, their account, the real numbers versus the fake statements they had been receiving. The color drained from Mr. Chen's face. His hands began to shake. "This cannot be right," he said. "Richard has been managing our retirement for 8 years. We just got our quarterly statement last month. It said we had $240,000. "You have $14,000, I said gently. "The rest is gone. My father has been stealing from you for years." Mrs. Chen started to cry. Mr. Chen just stared at the papers in his hands. "My wife has cancer," he said, his voice breaking. "We were going to use this money for her treatment. We just got approved for an experimental trial, but our insurance will not cover it. It cost $60,000. My heart broke. "I am so sorry. The SEC is investigating. You might get some of your money back eventually, but not in time," Mrs. Chen finished. "Not in time to save my life." We sat in silence for a long moment. Then Mr. Chen looked up at me with red eyes. "Why are you telling us this?" he asked. "You could have let the investigation happen quietly. Why come to us?" "Because people need to know who my family really is," I said. "That video that Stella posted, it has been viewed 5 million times. People are already disgusted by how they treated me, but they do not know the whole story yet. They do not know that the same people who tied me to a fence also stole the retirement savings of 12 families. They do not know that my mother wore diamonds bought with your money while she called my son a bastard." Understanding dawned on Mr. Chen's face. "You want us to go public?" "Only if you are willing," I said. "But I think the world deserves to know exactly who the Thompsons are." Mr. Chen looked at his wife. She nodded. "We will do it," he said. "For all the others they hurt. So no one else loses everything to these people." I met with each victim family over the next week. Some were angry, some were in denial, some just seemed broken by the betrayal. But all of them agreed to help. We coordinated our approach carefully. Each family would post their story on social media on the same day. They would include the video of Stella's party. They would share documentation of their losses, and they would all use the same hashtag so the stories would trend together. The timing had to be perfect. The SEC investigation was nearing its conclusion. Any day now they would move to freeze assets and make arrests. We needed to act just before that happened so the story would explode into public consciousness at the exact moment the criminal charges became public. Jessica, who had been monitoring the investigation through her legal connections, gave us a heads up. "It is happening tomorrow," she said. "They are going to freeze the accounts at 9 a.m. Arrests will likely happen by noon." "Then we post tonight," I said. At 8 p.m. on a Wednesday evening, 12 families posted their stories simultaneously. David and Helen Chen, the Patels who had lost their daughter's college fund, the Johnsons who had given my father their entire savings before retiring to Florida, the Rodriguez family who had trusted him with money from selling their family business. Each post told the same story from a different angle. This is what the Thompson family did to us while living a life of luxury funded by our stolen money. Within an hour, the posts were being shared thousands of times. Within 2 hours, local news outlets were picking up the story. Within 3 hours, it was trending nationwide. My phone rang at midnight. It was my mother. "What have you done?" she screamed. "What have you done?" "I told the truth," I said calmly. "That is all." "You vindictive little witch," she spat. "You are trying to destroy this family because you are jealous of Stella. This is all because we do not accept your little mistake." "His name is Leo," I interrupted. "And this has nothing to do with jealousy. This has to do with you and Dad stealing from people who trusted you. This has to do with you being cruel and vicious and getting away with it for years, but you are not getting away with it anymore. Richard did not do anything wrong. Those people do not understand how investments work. Mom, the SEC has been investigating for 6 weeks. They have all the evidence. Dad is going to prison. There is nothing you can say that will change that." There was a long silence. Then, "This is your fault. All of this is your fault. If you had just done what we asked, if you had just been grateful for everything we gave you." "You gave me nothing," I said. "You took everything and you still wanted more. But I am done now. I am done trying to earn your love. I am done trying to be good enough. I hope prison gives you time to think about what you did." I hung up. She called back 17 times that night. I did not answer. The next morning, federal agents arrived at my parents' house at 9 a.m. sharp. They seized computers, documents, hard drives. They froze every bank account. They placed liens on the house, the cars, everything. My father was arrested at his office at 11:30. My mother was arrested at the country club where she had been having lunch trying to pretend everything was normal. Both were charged with multiple counts of wire fraud, investment fraud, and money laundering. Stella was not charged with anything because she had not been directly involved in the scheme. But her life fell apart anyway. Marcus broke up with her via text message within hours of the arrests. His message was brief. Cannot be associated with this situation. Wish you well. Stella's Instagram followers, which had peaked at 200,000 after her party video went viral, dropped by half in 24 hours. The comments on all her posts were brutal. This is the girl whose parents stole retirement savings. Your whole life was funded by fraud. How does it feel to be a spoiled brat whose parents are criminals? I hope you end up homeless. She deleted her account 3 days later. The media coverage was relentless. Every news outlet wanted the story. The wealthy family brought down by their own daughter, the daughter who had been humiliated at a party and got her revenge by exposing her father's crimes. Some people painted me as a hero. Some painted me as vindictive. I did not care about either narrative. I only cared that the truth was out. The trial took 8 months. My father's lawyers tried every possible defense. They claimed the investments were legitimate and just performed poorly. They claimed the victims misunderstood their risk. They even tried to claim that I had fabricated evidence because of a family grudge. But the evidence was overwhelming. The SEC had verified everything. They had found even more fraud than I had originally uncovered. By their estimation, my father had stolen over $4 million from 23 different families over the course of 12 years. The jury found him guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. My mother, as an accomplice, received 7 years. At the sentencing hearing, they were both given a chance to speak. My father used his time to insist he had done nothing wrong. My mother used hers to blame me for destroying the family. Neither of them apologized to their victims. Neither of them apologized to me. As part of the sentencing, all their assets were seized and liquidated. The mansion sold at auction, the cars, the jewelry, the artwork, everything went to pay restitution to the victims. But it was not enough. Even after everything was sold, the victims only recovered about 60 cents on the dollar. David and Helen Chen got back about 120,000 of their 200,000. It was something, but it was not what they had lost. The other victims were in similar situations. They had gotten some money back, but not all of it. Lives had still been ruined. Retirements had still been destroyed. One afternoon, about a month after the sentencing, I got a phone call from David Chen. "Chloe, could you come to our house? There is something we would like to discuss with you." When I arrived, I found not just David and Helen, but representatives from all 12 victim families gathered in their living room. "Thank you for coming," David said. "We wanted to talk to you about something we have all discussed." I sat down confused. "We know that you lost a lot too," Helen said gently. "Your family, your history, even though they were terrible to you, that is still a loss. And we know that you have a son to raise," added Mr. Patel. "We know that you are working hard, but that money is tight." "We wanted to do something to thank you," David said. "You did not have to come forward. You could have stayed silent and protected yourself, but you chose to help us instead." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a check. "We each contributed what we could from our restitution," he explained. "We have set up a trust fund for Leo's education. It is not a fortune, but it is enough to make sure he can go to college without worrying about debt." I stared at the check. $50,000. "I cannot accept this," I whispered. "This is your money. You've already lost so much." "We want you to have it," Helen said firmly. "You gave us justice when we thought there was none. This is the least we can do." I started crying. For the first time in this entire ordeal, I cried not from pain or anger, but from gratitude. These people who my family had victimized had chosen to help me. They had taken their limited resources and given some to ensure my son would have opportunities. It was the kind of generosity my own family had never shown me. The aftermath took years to settle. Stella moved to another state, changed her name, and from what I heard, through mutual acquaintances, got a job as a receptionist at a dental office. She had to learn to support herself for the first time in her life. My parents served their sentences. My father was released after 12 years for good behavior. My mother got out after 5. I heard they were living in a small apartment in a not-so-nice part of town, both working minimum wage jobs, because no one would hire a convicted felon for anything better. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for them. A small part still loved them despite everything because they were my parents, and some bonds are hard to break completely. But then I would think about David and Helen Chen, about the Patel's daughter who had to take out massive student loans because her college fund was gone, about the Johnsons who had to move in with their children because they could not afford to live independently anymore. And any sympathy I felt would evaporate. They had made their choices. They had chosen greed over integrity, appearances over honesty, cruelty over kindness. and now they were living with the consequences of those choices. As for me, life got better. Slowly, gradually, but definitely better. I got promoted at work. I moved to a better apartment in a safer neighborhood. I bought a reliable car that did not make concerning noises. I took Leo to the park on weekends and to the movies on Friday nights. And about 2 years after the trial, on a warm Saturday afternoon in June, I organized a small birthday party for Leo in that same park where I had once fled from Stella's party in humiliation. This party was nothing like Stella's extravaganza. No ice sculptures or live bands, no 5-tier cakes or champagne fountains. Just a picnic blanket spread on the grass, some sandwiches from the grocery store deli, and a chocolate cupcake with a candle from the bakery down the street. But the people there were real. Jessica came with her husband and their new baby. David and Helen Chen came, Helen doing well after completing her treatment. Several other families from the fraud case came, people who had become friends through our shared trauma. A few of Leo's classmates came with their parents. Leo ran around with the other kids playing tag and laughing. He was 7 now, doing well in school, seeing a therapist regularly to help him process everything that had happened. He was happy, genuinely happy. I watched him blow out his candle and make a wish chocolate frosting smeared across his face. The afternoon sun was warm on my face. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt at peace. My phone buzzed. It was an email from my publisher. After months of work, my book was finally ready for release. The story of what had happened, written not for sensationalism, but to help other people trapped in toxic family situations see that there was a way out. I put my phone away and turned back to the party. Leo ran up to me, his face covered in chocolate. "Mommy, this is the best birthday ever," he said, hugging me around the waist. "I am glad, baby. Do you think Grandma and Grandpa will ever want to see me?" he asked. It was the first time he had mentioned them in months. I knelt down to his level and looked him in the eyes. "No, honey, they are not part of our lives anymore. But you know what? We do not need them. We have each other, and we have all these wonderful people who really care about us. That is what family is supposed to be." He thought about this for a moment, then nodded seriously. "Okay, can I have another cupcake?" I laughed. "Yes, you can have another cupcake." As I watched him run back to the picnic blanket, I thought about everything that had happened. The years of abuse and humiliation. The night at the fence that had changed everything. The investigation and the trial and the slow, difficult process of rebuilding. I had spent so long trying to earn my family's love, trying to prove I was worthy of their respect. I had sacrificed my dignity, my peace of mind, my sense of self-worth, all for people who saw me as nothing more than a convenient servant. The woman who had been tied to that fence 2 years ago felt like a different person. She had been broken, desperate for approval, willing to accept crumbs of affection from people who should have loved her unconditionally. The woman I was now had learned the most important lesson of her life. I did not need their approval. I did not need their love. I did not need to set myself on fire to keep them warm. I had worth all on my own. My son had worth. And anyone who could not see that did not deserve a place in our lives. The fence they had tied me to had been torn down when the mansion was sold. But metaphorically, I had torn down all the fences that had kept me trapped in their toxic system. I was free. Really, truly free. Did I feel guilty about what happened to my parents? Sometimes in quiet moments late at night, despite everything they had raised me. There were good memories mixed in with the bad moments when they had been kind times when I had felt loved. But then I would think about Leo's face when my mother threw his cake in the trash and called him that word. I would think about David Chen's tears when he learned his retirement was gone and his wife might not get the treatment she needed. I would think about all the families my father had destroyed with his greed, while my mother stood by and enabled it. No, I did not feel guilty. I had done the right thing. Sometimes the right thing is hard. Sometimes it means watching your family face consequences for their actions. Sometimes it means being called a traitor and a vindictive witch. But standing in that park watching my son laugh and play, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about us, I knew I had made the right choice. The white fence was gone. The silk ribbon that had cut into my wrist was gone. The family that had hurt me was gone. And from the ashes of that destruction, I had built something new, something healthy, something real. I had not just survived, I had won. Years from now, when Leo is older and asks questions about his grandparents, I will tell him the truth. Not to make him hate them, but to help him understand that family is not just about blood. Family is about the people who show up for you, who celebrate your victories, and support you through your failures, who see your worth even when you cannot see it yourself. I will teach him that he never has to accept being treated as less than he deserves. Not from family, not from friends, not from anyone. I will teach him that love should not hurt. That real love does not humiliate or control or trap you. And I will teach him that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who are destroying you, even if those people share your DNA. Because that is the gift that came from my pain. That is the wisdom that grew from the ashes of my old life. That is the legacy I will pass on to my son. Nobody gets to tie you to a fence, literal or metaphorical, and call it love. And if they try, you have every right to burn their whole world down to free yourself. Sometimes the only way to save yourself is to let everything else fall. Sometimes the only way to breathe is to walk away from the people who are suffocating you. Sometimes the family you are born into is not the family you are meant to have. I learned these lessons the hard way, but I learned them completely. And now, standing in the sunshine with my son's laughter ringing in my ears, I finally understand what happiness feels like. Not the desperate, anxious, trying to please others kind of happiness. The real kind, the free kind. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are and refusing to apologize for it. That is the kind of happiness worth fighting for. That is the kind of happiness I found on the other side of that white fence. So here is what I want you to take away from my story. If you are in a toxic situation, whether it is with family, a partner, a friend, anyone, you have the power to change it. You do not have to accept abuse just because it comes from people who are supposed to love you. Love should not hurt. Love should not humiliate. Love should not trap you. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between family and your own well-being? What did you do? I want to hear your stories in the comments. And if my story helped you in any way, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a video. Your support means everything. Remember, you are not alone, and you are stronger than you think.